Hey y'all, it's me again. It's Lucy from paperglitterglue.com, where, make all these paper crafts, 3D paper crafts usually, and lots of little houses. So today for our spooktacular craft, I'm making the Widow's Walk house. And it's based on a design where there was a kind of a little pathway at the top of the house, and I thought it was because these were like coastal houses, and the wife would go up to the top to see if her husband's ship was coming in. But I since learned that it was actually to help prevent fires, so that they had sand up here, and if there were any chimney fires, they could put the chimney fires out. But it's called a widow's walk, so I didn't learn the second story until recently. But anyway, I've got a distressed wood grain pattern. I use wood grain paper from 12 by 12 cardstock company, and I used the batwing fence, which is available in the VIP pass. And I made some little polymer pumpkins, and I'll have kind of a special video to show you how to do that. But it's just a really neat house with a lot of personality. I like the porch. And so anyway, that is the Widow's Walk house. That's today's spooktacular project. Let's go ahead and get started on it. Now we are within Cricut Design Space, and I'm going to show you how to set up the files for the Widow's Walk haunted house. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble saying that. And we're on the canvas of Cricut Design Space. I'm going to click New File, Upload Image, Browse. Here is the Widow's Walk file at the Upload Image page. I'm going to continue. We go to Image Details. And one thing I do want you to see here is that I draw the score lines in red. So everything which has red lines like this is a score line. So let's go to Upload. I'm going to reduce it in size just to see all my pieces. Let me see. I think we can see it pretty well at 50%. So I'm going to ungroup it now. I go to the Layers panel over here, this group symbol, ungroup. And now now that I know that my scale square is correct, 1 by 1, I can delete that. And these are the pieces. This is the front piece of the Widow's Walk house. This is the back piece. These are roof pieces they're designed this way so you can easily add shingles. It's much easier to add shingles to a flat surface than an angled surface. So these are kind of like over roof pieces, and these lower ones are flat for flashing. This is the trim at the top of the house, and I kind of designed it so that it goes around the corner, so you didn't have to fool around with 4 different pieces. But so that's why. So you have to trim it to fit. And I would cut 2 of these. Actually, I cut like 4. I make this several layers thick, so 2 or 3 layers thick, because these little pickets are a little fragile. All right. This is the porch roof. This is the porch base. These are the porch columns. And the flashing has a score line too. Okay, so let me just show you real quickly the score lines. So let's go to the main body of the Widow's Walk house, the front and the 2 sides. And under this area right here, these are the score lines. And I remember I told you I draw them in red, so there's my color box, which shows that these lines are drawn in red. Go into the Operations menu, kind of click the little down arrow, and we choose Score. And now you'll see that these lines have turned into dashed lines. But I want my Cricut to know that these dashed lines belong to this piece, so I'm going to attach them. Let's do the same thing to the back piece. We selected it. Choose the little lines. there in red. Score, scroll down to score, select the entire piece again, and attach. The columns, same thing. I'm actually going to ungroup them. So I just clicked. Well, I thought I did. This is ungroup. So I select it. Those are the series of score lines. Choose them. The red color box. Scroll and attach with the button in the layers panel, and do the same with these two pieces. This is the porch roof and base. I need to ungroup them as well. There's one score line on the porch roof. Select it, red, scroll down to score, select the entire piece, attach. Same thing with the porch base. Pick out the lines. We see our red color box. We go to score, select the entire piece, attach. Let me see, that's almost all of them. These are the roof pieces, and these 4 angled pieces are flashing. We need to ungroup it so we can change these score lines, and we can designate this little angled line here as a score line. So select it. It's an angled line. You see my red color box. Score, select the entire piece, attach. And we'll do the same with the other 3. Oh, and you may wonder about the windows. There's 2 sets. One set of windows is a little funkier. They're a little bit asymmetric. Let me make it a little larger so you can see. These are just a little bit, some crooked. There's just a little variation, and I added a coffin-shaped door. So that's if you want to make a Halloween-specific house. But I really like this design, so I thought I would make it so if you want to turn it into a Christmas house, you don't have these little crookedy windows. These are all straight windows and then just an arched door. All right, let's go construct the Widow's Walk haunted house. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, these are, I made them in cardstock, and as always, I recommend you use a heavier grade cardstock for the structure of the house itself. So I like, I'm sorry, I only know it in pounds, like 80 to 110 pound cardstock. It just makes for a stronger house. I actually use wood grain cardstock from 12 by 12 Cardstock Company, and it worked really nicely. Let's go make it. For the Widow's Walk house, I'm going to add a wood grain siding. Let me see if I can show you. I gotta get. It's hard to see the wood grain texture there. You can see it a little bit. This is a wood grain cardstock from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. And I'm going to use some ink, stamping ink, and see if we can kind of bring it to life. So now you can start to see the grain. So I just want to make kind of a spooky house. And I'm going to use black windows for this and a coffin-shaped door. I think it'll look kind of fun. Now you can see the wood graining. And let me find some black windows just to kind of show you. I made some kind of crookedy black windows. See, I think it's going to look good. So, but the wood graining just adds some texture and a little personality to it. So I'm going to do that to all the pieces. And if you're not sure you like this technique, then practice on just some scrap paper. See, this is the cutoff part. There you can see a little bit of the graining. And just kind of practice on scrap paper and kind of I think this ink is kind of running out. But see if you like it and how much you want to do, how dark you want it, or could you do another color? Do you want it in purple? Do you want kind of a weathered blue? So, and then I'm going to glue this piece to the front. I cut this piece out by using the pattern and not designating the score lines as score. So instead of doing score lines, I just let it cut it so it's exactly the same size as the house itself. And that way I don't have to add extra pieces and you're like, what is this piece? And why do you have this piece and you've got this piece? I think it's less confusing if I just tell you to cut it out and then you have these extra pieces if you want to add siding this way. The other advantage to it is it makes it stronger. My background piece is 100 or 110 pound cardstock, so it's nice and sturdy. And then you add your wood grain, which I don't know if it's 65 to 80, but it's another relatively heavy cardstock, and it makes your house sturdier. So I'm going to go ahead and color the other pieces, and then I'll glue them on top and I'll show it to you. Now I'm folding along all the score lines on the widow walk pieces, on the base pieces, the background pieces. And I do that before I glue any decorations on so I can make sure I line them up correctly. It's much easier to get off the computer. I'm sorry, Alley Cat just walked on the computer. She knows better. Okay, so this is going to go on the front. I'm just going to apply some Barely Art glue to the back. I don't really need a lot. Okay, so that was the back of the front piece. The front piece has got a bunch of windows. Okay. The back piece has this hole so that you can apply light. You can put a little light in there, like a little string of LED lights in there. That's why it's got this hole in the back. Sometimes I put windows in the back, and sometimes I do this kind of traditional light hole. That's based on the way the little Putz houses, the little original Christmas houses, those are the houses that got me inspired in the first place. They had this hole in the back. And so sometimes I leave them for tradition, but it does have a function. There you go. Now do two side pieces. This is the main structure of the house. Now, one thing about it is that each of these pieces, these are exactly the same size. So when it's flat, there's not quite enough room, but when it's folded, it fits exactly. You can either trim it a little bit if you want, or just glue it on like this. I think I'm going to try it this way. Again, you can just trim just a little tiny bit off and it'll fit when it's flat. But like I said, the house is not going to be flat, so it should fit. And the single most important line is lining things up at the bottom so that your house stands flat. Add the next side piece. One reason I like glue is you can kind of smear it around a little bit and it's seated a little better. It anchors it. Okay, there we go. Now let's glue on there is our coffin door. And there is a porch included in this pattern. Let me see if I don't think I've got one built yet. But this is a piece. So you see how thick it is. So you want to leave room so your door can open. So I moved it up a little bit. Windows. And I just want to point out, let me see if I got some here. There are two sets of windows. I mentioned it when we talked about the pattern. There are two sets of windows. There is a set that is perfectly symmetrical, and all of these are just a little bit wonky. Just a little bit wonky. So if you want perfectly straight windows, or you want to use regular door and just make kind of a regular house, here's a straight one. So see, that one's nice and symmetrical. And then this one I kind of made it asymmetrical. So you got that option. You need 9 windows. I don't know if I said doors or windows. You need 9 windows for the house, but there are 10 in the pattern. 10 wonky and 10 regular. So just choose whichever ones you want. But I wanted you to be able to use this house, like if you wanted to make it for a different season. It's still a fun house pattern. It doesn't have to be exclusively for Halloween. We'll do the 2 on the sides. On each side. I think it looks like a nice spooky house. I'm going to let those dry for just a second, and then we'll assemble the house, the main house structure. This house has what's called a hipped roof, where it leans in on both sides. It's angled inward on really all 4 sides. It makes for a very sturdy structure. In real houses too. Hipped roofs do better in high wind situations, like on real houses, like tornadoes and hurricanes. But they also make really nice spooky houses. This little glue tab goes behind each side. And I probably should have done the back piece first. Okay, so here's the main structure, the front and 2 sides, and this is the back piece. And the back piece, I call this an inset type house because the back piece is inset of the front piece. It's one way to make a larger house on with your Cricut. Okay, so I've got glue on these. Let's smear it a little. It dries a little faster and it adheres a little better if you smear it. I'm using my Barely Art glue. When I use cardboard, I usually use a slightly stronger glue. Tacky glue, quick dry. That's my favorite for cardboard in particular. Or for things that are just hard to glue together, like roof dormers or angled roofs. So again, the important part is lining up the bottom. And often I use a little bit of tape here, a little bit of painter's tape to hold it. I try to use just a small piece, and sometimes if you don't want it to be too sticky, you can stick it down a little bit. And because I don't want to mess up my cardstock, so I'm just kind of mainly applying a little bit of pressure at the edge. And if you're not clumsy like me, you may be able to hold things better. And it'll work better. The glue will work just fine, but I'm pretty clumsy, so I require some tape to help me. See how I left the edges up so that it's easy to peel off. Okay. And ideally you would leave it alone before you glue these in, but I'm going to go ahead and glue these in. So I'm applying glue to these tabs, these angled tabs. And you can be messy here because this is really the under roof. This is not the main roof. Main roof are some separate pieces that go on top, and I'll show you different ways to decorate the main roof. I just slid them in. And again, if you want, here we can use some tape without really worrying about it. Without really worrying about it tearing our cardstock, rather. See what I mean about clumsy? Okay, now you kind of close this like a box top, and it makes for a very sturdy top. See how nice that is? And then we can decorate it with our, that's what makes it a widow's walk. We've got this little flat area on top. Supposedly, the wives of sailors would go up on the widow's walk and, see how when the sailors were coming back in, when the ships were coming back in. Okay, and see, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a really sturdy little house already. But that's part of it's due to the structure of the roof. And we did 2 layers of cardstock too. All right, I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll add the decorative top, and then we'll add the roof. I just pulled the tape off, the painter's tape that I used to hold the house together, and it did pull up a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of ink it and make it look like the house was damaged. Like a Halloween house was damaged, not like my house was damaged. See, we patched it. Okay, I forgot something important. If you want background paper, I'm going to use some orange vellum for this one. It's much easier to do before you put the house all together. So I'm going to have to kind of improvise. Add glue where I think where it will adhere. I could measure, but what's the fun in that? Kind of slide it in. That's going to work. I think the orange will give a nice glow to this particular Halloween house. And I'm going to do the same on each side. There we go. Compensated for doing it later. And you can see it's all gluing inside. And now I think I'm going to do purple shingles for this house. There is a set of shingles in your pattern. Okay, let's finish up the pieces for the Widow's Walk house. I've already done some ahead of time. These are the shingles, and I actually used a fair number of shingles to make really detailed texture for the Widow's Walk house. So there are 4 pieces for the over roofs, for this part of the roof, a front and back, and then 2 smaller side pieces. These are the shingles, and if you see, I actually inked them to give that little extra dimension, just so it wouldn't look so flat. This is the railing at the top of the Widow's Walk house. We'll do that next. This is the porch. These are the porch columns. And here's the porch roof. Let's go ahead and glue the porch railing, not the porch railing, the roof railing together. And you can use, if you want, it's easy, just use one sheet, but I like to glue them together to make them stronger. And I've already started applying glue to this one. So I'm using my Barely Art glue. I think it's especially important to get a little bit of glue on the tip. That's the most vulnerable part of this kind of railing, or if you make an iron fence like this. Match up the pieces, slide them so that they line up at the bottom and on the side, and then I smush down all the little tips. And I made the size big enough so you can apply it and see where it bends, and then I just kind of fold it, and then I trimmed it. I actually made it a little bit longer just in case you need some flexibility. So there, that looks good. And I intend for you to put the railing on before you glue the roof pieces on. All right, so next, we've got that ready. We've got the railing ready. And let me show you real quick how to do the roof, the little, what I call the over roof. This is a much easier way to do it as opposed to applying the shingles once the roof is in place or applying them directly here. It's much easier to apply them to a piece, and I'll show you why. It's largely because you have to trim them. So for the first piece, you flip it over. I like it to just barely, this little tip of the shingle to just barely overhang the edge. And try to make sure it's straight because it'll shift on you, so I always look. And then you want to kind of stagger the shingles so they don't line up exactly right, exactly the same, rather. Again, it makes a much more interesting texture. So you see how it makes like a little diamond shape. And we'll continue this, and then when it's dry, we just trim off the edges, and that's so much easier than trying to trim them one by one, which is what I used to do, but now I try to come up with a way to have an over roof that I can apply to the roof just to simplify things. And now it's so easy to trim it. I'm going to let it dry a little bit before I trim it, but it's much easier to just go clip clip than to cut each individual strip. Alrighty, the next thing is making the little porch, and it's just basically you're making like a little box. So I've already glued one corner down, so just apply glue to this little tab, these little tabs, and hold them in place. Dry. I'm going to use a lighter piece because I want it to show up on the front of the house. In other words, I didn't distress this one quite as much as I did the house. And the post will go on the outside. So when we glue it together, these will be away from the house. Okay, next, let's make the little posts. And the posts have an angle so that they help the porch roof go at the proper angle. All right, these are kind of, because these little posts are narrow, I think it helps to use a ruler. You don't have to use a ruler, but I think it's a little easier to fold it correctly. So I always fold on the scored side first, and then I fold away. And it's hard to tell, but the narrower piece is the tab. So apply some glue here. And I used relatively thick cardstock. I think this is 110-pound cardstock. It just makes a stronger column, but I think 65 would work. 65-pound or lighter cardstock. And then you just kind of have to fit it in here. The angle, because the porch roof comes from the house and it's angled downward. So be sure to put the angle in that way. Let me kind of show you. So that's how it's going to go. And now I'm going to make the other three. Okay, so we have those 4 pieces done. We can go ahead and put them in their little slots. Okay. Now I'm not going to glue this to the house yet. I'm not going to glue it to the house until I have a base done, because it needs to be secure. So, but I think you can tell it's going to look good. Okay, we'll set that aside. Now let's glue the railing to the top of the widow's walk. It's such a fun detail for the house. This one's 2 pieces. It's 2 pieces glued together. So let me trim it. right here. Just kind of holding it in place. This isn't exactly one of the places you can tape. You really just kind of have to hold it. And it's most important that the sides line up on the front of the house. So I was like all lined up on the back, but really the front's the important part. I'm going to let that dry. And I think while that is drying, we can trim our roof, our over roof. And then you simply glue this in place. I want to be sure and have a bead of glue here. Do the same thing on the back. Sometimes when things dry, they get a little curved, so you might have to kind of straighten them out. Okay, now there are 4 other pieces you may have seen, and these are, they're sort of a little arrow shaped. These actually are designed to cover the edge. Now, I couldn't decide which color to use. I think I'm going to do the purple, and then I'll distress it. So that covers up the intersection between these roof pieces. I think it makes it look a lot better. Yeah, see? It gives it a finishing look. I like that. There we go. And like I said, I'll apply some distressing. Kind of make it look so shiny and new. I'm going to let all the roof pieces dry, and then when I add the base, we'll glue the porch on and the porch roof, and we're done. It's gonna be so cute. Now for the final steps of making the Widow's Walk house, we're going to glue it to the base, glue the porch on, and I have to stabilize these. I'm going to put glue around these. And then once they're in place, we'll add the roof, the porch roof. And the other thing to remember is to line these up so that the angle is away from the house, because the porch roof is angled this way. So remember that when you put your little porches in, your porch columns in. Okay, so first, glue it to the house. I've made a base. I think this is 6 by 4.5 inches. I don't have my ruler right by me, but I think that's what it is. This is just over 4 inches. So I wanted enough room to add a little landscaping, and I'm going to use the Batwing house, which is in the All Access Pass, the Instant Access bonus, whatever, the bonus files. So when you get the ticket, when you buy the ticket, you get the file for the Batwing house, Batwing fence, excuse me. All right, first glue. I'm going to use a stronger glue. Really, any glue will work, but I've found that this glue is faster and it's a little thicker. It doesn't quite drip as much. I think you can see when I put it on that it's a pretty thick glue. I like it for gluing on roofs and for gluing the house to the base. This is tacky glue, fast grab tacky glue rather. Okay, now the next thing I do is I'll put it on a little bit back, so it's closer to the back, and ooch it front so that these drips won't show in the front. So I'll start further back, put it down, and then kind of scooch it forward just a little bit. And even if the glue dries clear, it still has a little bit of shine to it. You can kind of see a puddle over here and a puddle in the back. I'm going to get a wet paper towel and wipe those up. And also you can see I distressed the base. I just, especially for Halloween stuff, I like it to look a little distressed. I don't like flat paint. So, and the base is 3 layers of corrugated cardboard. I basically cut up something like a kitty litter box, and then I put a hole in the middle so you could add an LED light. So this is one base in progress, an undistressed base. All right, now the reason I like to have the house glued to the base when I glue down the porch is when it dries, glue shrinks just a little bit and it tends to kind of tip the porch up a bit. So if we've got it already glued to the base, that doesn't happen as much. And I'm going to apply glue around these porch columns, even though they won't be, it'll take a minute for them to dry. So the porch columns are embedded in the porch base, and that way they're sturdier. And now I'm going to apply a bead of glue around the base of the porch. I'm trying to do just a light bit of glue in front of the porch because that shows more. Okay, do I have all my little columns saturated with glue? Yep. I'm going to add some glue here too. This is the part that touches the house. Okay, so I'm going to kind of tilt it, squish it up against the house, and then put it down, trying to make sure it's straight. Okay, so now the next challenge is to try to keep the columns straight. You want them to dry so that they are, okay, let me see if I can do this without knocking everything off. You want them to dry so that they stand up straight. So we have a choice here. We can wait until it's completely dry or like mostly dry. And I kind of opt for mostly dry because if the columns shift a little, I still have some wiggle room, some literal wiggle room. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry for a little while, and then we'll apply glue here and here on the top of the columns and put the porch in place. And really, that's what makes gives us the most personality to this house, other than, this cool roof. All right. Okay, I've let the porch kind of get dry, but it's not completely dry, and these are still a little flexible, so I can make sure they line up straight. So let me get my glue. I'm going to apply it to the columns first, and now all we do is apply it to this edge of the porch roof. I think I'm going to smear it just a little bit, makes it thinner and dry a little bit faster and adhere a little faster. So sticking to where it's supposed to go is important. Alrighty, so I'm going to touch it to the porch columns and then get all this excess glue out of the way. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to straighten the columns. They really look pretty good to me. I mean, they're not perfect, but they're pretty good. All right, so here's our choice. I mean, I could try to tape it, but when you apply force, a lot of times the little columns will move. So I'm just going to kind of gently hold them and probably watch TV for a few minutes while the glue dries. I think that's the most practical thing to do. Okay, I'll show you when I'm finished. Okay, I got my little porch roof on with all the little columns lined up. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. They look good from the front in particular. Now I'm going to glue on the batwing fence. So I think what I'm going to do, I kind of designed it so it would fit with the six inch base. I think I'm going to apply this and wait a minute and let it get tacky so it'll stick easily on the side. And I believe this will fit on each side. I'm going to trim it a little bit. I added these kind of almost extra spacers. Let's do the same thing. Apply glue. Let it just get a little bit tacky. If you wait just a minute, the glue dries enough to get really sticky. This is the other 3-inch side. Let me measure. Okay, I'm going to trim off these little extensions. Wait. Let me show you these little nubs. So one more. Again, using the quick dry tacky glue. Quick dry tacky glue. I'm just applying it. Let's see how it looks. Okay, I'm going to let that dry and then I'll add the other pieces. I've glued the back piece of fencing on the base and it's not real dry. You can see the glue. It's not real dry, but I think it's good enough so that I can add these side pieces. I added the glue just a few minutes ago so it would get tacky, okay, and would adhere better. So I wouldn't have to wait quite as long for it to dry. Or not dry as much as sort of stick in place, okay. I'm going to add some glue where these two pieces intersect and they will help support each other. And I know that's not the neatest glue line, but the nice thing about the black fencing is if the glue line shows, if it's like shiny and you could tell I've glued there, I just get a little black paint, a matte black paint over it. Okay, now I'm going to let this dry. Now let's add the final piece to the fence. Maybe. Might add a little bit in the front. Okay, so now the debate is, do we add a little piece here? I don't know. I'm going to let this dry and then I'll decide. Anyway, you see how to add the fencing. You saw how to add the porch roof on, the porch roof. We've got the railing, the widow's walk railing done. So basically this house is done. And I need to add like some autumn leaves, some pumpkins, I don't know, maybe a little figure something, but we'll figure it out. Okay, but that is the Widow's Walk house. So I hope to see you tomorrow with another episode of the Great Halloween Spooktacular.